My phone buzzed during recess duty, and I almost didn't answer. But when I saw it was my cousin Ashley calling, something in my gut told me to pick up. Emma, did you know your grandmother's house just sold? Her voice carried confusion and concern that made my stomach drop. I stood frozen on the playground, children's laughter suddenly distant and muted. What are you talking about? Grandma's still alive. She's in hospice. The words came out automatically, but even as I said them, dread was already creeping through my chest like ice water. I know, but I just saw the listing marked as sold online. It closed 3 days ago. I thought maybe you knew and just hadn't mentioned it. I ended the call and immediately dialed my mother, Linda Blake. She answered on the third ring, her voice smooth and unbothered. Emma, sweetheart. What's wrong? Did you sell Grandma's house? Silence stretched for 3 beats too long. Then she laughed, light and dismissive. Oh that. Yes, dear. It was necessary for her medical bills. You know how expensive hospice care is. But I knew Grandma June's care was fully covered by insurance and Medicare. I'd helped her sort through the paperwork myself 6 months ago when she first got sick. My mother was lying, and she was doing it with the same casual ease she'd used my entire life. Mom, her care is covered. Why would you sell her house without telling anyone? It's complicated, Emma. Adults handle these things. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. She hung up before I could respond, leaving me standing in the spring sunshine with my 7-year-old students playing around me, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. Something was terribly wrong. I left school the moment the final bell rang, calling in a substitute for the next day, and drove straight to Magnolia Gardens Hospice Center. The Spanish moss hung heavy from the oak trees lining the drive, creating shadows that matched my darkening mood. Grandma June was awake when I arrived, propped up on pillows, her once vibrant presence now reduced to fragile bones and paper-thin skin. But her eyes, those sharp blue eyes that had watched me grow up, were still clear and knowing. Emma baby, she said, reaching for my hand with fingers that trembled. I'm so glad you're here. I pulled a chair close to her bed and held her hand gently. Grandma, I need to ask you something. Did you know Mom sold your house? The change in her expression was immediate and devastating. Her face fell, and tears welled up in those blue eyes that rarely cried. She sold my home? Her voice shook with betrayal and disbelief. When? How? 3 days ago, apparently. She told me it was for your medical bills. Grandma's hand gripped mine with surprising strength. My bills are covered, sweetheart. You know that. We went through all the paperwork together. A tear slipped down her weathered cheek. That house was supposed to be yours, Emma. Yours and Ben's. I told her that 100 times. It was meant to be your inheritance, your security. I promised your grandfather before he died that I'd keep it in the family for you. I know, Grandma. I know. I fought back my own tears, trying to stay strong for her. But watching my grandmother's heartbreak, seeing the betrayal wash over her frail face, ignited something in me that went beyond sadness. It was fury, cold and clarifying. My mother had stolen from her own dying mother, had sold the home Grandma June had lived in for 50 years, the place where I'd spent every summer of my childhood, where my son Ben had learned to catch fireflies and pick magnolias. And she'd done it while Grandma lay helpless in a hospice bed. I'm going to fix this, I promised, squeezing her hand. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to make this right. Grandma's tears kept falling, but she nodded. Be careful, baby. Your mother, she's not the woman I raised. Greed changes people. That evening, I drove to my mother's pristine house in Savannah's historic district, the kind of address that screamed old money and careful cultivation of image. I let myself in with the key I still had from years ago, calling out to announce my presence. Linda appeared from her study, perfectly dressed even at 7 p.m., her makeup flawless, her expression carefully neutral. Emma, I wasn't expecting you. Is Ben with you? He's with his father. We need to talk about Grandma's house. I walked past her into the study, and that's when I saw them, real estate documents spread across her mahogany desk. I grabbed the top page before she could stop me, scanning the date. 2 weeks before Grandma's hospitalization. This wasn't a rushed decision made in crisis. This wasn't about medical bills or desperate necessity. This was premeditated theft, planned and executed while Grandma was still lucid enough to object but too trusting to suspect. You planned this, I said, my voice shaking with controlled rage. You started the sale process before she was even sick enough to go to hospice. Linda snatched the papers from my hands, her composed mask slipping for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. You always did think you were owed something, Emma. But that's not how the world works. I'm her daughter. I'm her primary caregiver. I make the decisions about her assets. Her assets? She's not dead yet. Might as well be, Linda said, and the casual cruelty of it took my breath away. She's got weeks at most. The house needed to sell while the market was good. I was being practical. You were being a thief. Get out of my house. Her voice went ice cold. And stay out of my business. You don't understand the complexities of managing an elderly parent's estate. Estate? She's still alive. But Linda just pointed to the door, her face hard and unyielding. As I left, I realized my mother had been waiting for this moment, planning for it, counting down to Grandma's death like it was a business transaction rather than the loss of her own mother. The next blow came 2 days later when my Aunt Ruth called, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Ruth was Linda's younger sister, gentle where Linda was hard, timid where Linda was bold. She'd lived in the small cottage on Grandma's property for 15 years, paying minimal rent in exchange for helping with yard work and keeping Grandma company. Emma, I just got a letter from the new buyer, Ruth gasped between sobs. I have 30 days to vacate. 30 days. Where am I supposed to go? I can't afford anything in Savannah anymore. My stomach dropped. Ruth, did you have a lease agreement with Grandma? Yes, but Linda told me not to worry about it when the house went into the estate management. She said family doesn't need formal paperwork, that everything would stay the same. Of course she did. Linda had lied to Ruth the same way she'd lied to everyone, smoothing over concerns with false reassurances while planning to pull the rug out from under her own sister. I'm 62 years old, Emma, Ruth continued, her voice breaking. I was supposed to stay there until I qualified for senior housing next year. What am I going to do? The betrayal was rippling outward, affecting more than just me and Grandma. Linda had sold not just a house but people's homes, their security, their future. And she'd done it all with a smile and practiced lies. Ruth, don't do anything yet. Don't sign anything, don't agree to anything. I'm going to figure this out. But after I hung up, Ruth sent me a text that made my heart sink. Please, Emma, stay out of it. You know how your mother gets when people challenge her. It's not worth the fight. I'll find something. That's what Linda counted on, people being too afraid or too tired to stand up to her. But I was done being afraid. And I was definitely not too tired to fight for what was right. I spent every free moment at the hospice over the next week, helping care for Grandma as her condition slowly deteriorated. One afternoon, while adjusting her pillows, her nurse Karen paused and looked at me thoughtfully. Your grandmother asked me for something unusual a few months ago, Karen said quietly, glancing toward the door as if checking for eavesdroppers. She wanted me to bring in a camera, not a phone, but an actual video camera with good quality. She said it was for something important, that she needed to record a message. My heart started racing. Did she say what it was for? No, but she was very specific that it needed to happen before she got too weak to speak clearly. We did it about 10 weeks ago, before the pain got really bad. She seemed relieved afterward, like she'd accomplished something important. I filed this information away, a small spark of hope in the darkness. Whatever Grandma had recorded, it might be the key to undoing what Linda had done. I'd been trying to reach Mr. Crawford, Grandma's longtime attorney, for 3 days. He'd been her lawyer for over 30 years, handling everything from her will to property transfers to the trust she'd set up for my education. But he kept dodging my calls, his secretary giving vague excuses about being in meetings or out of the office. The evasiveness felt deliberate, like he was avoiding me on purpose. But why? Was Linda paying him to stay silent? Had she somehow gotten to him first, manipulating the situation before I could even understand what was happening? The suspense was suffocating, the sense that everyone knew something I didn't, that pieces were moving on a board I couldn't see. That evening, I brought Ben to visit his great-grandmother. He held her hand gently, showing her a drawing he'd made at school, and I watched her face light up despite the pain. "That's beautiful, sweet boy," she whispered. "You're going to do great things." After Ben wandered over to look at the fish tank in the corner, Grandma pulled me close. "Emma, there are things I've put in place. Don't give up. Promise me." "I promise, Grandma. I won't let her get away with this." But even as I made that promise, I wondered if I was already too late. The manipulation escalated in small, insidious ways I almost didn't catch. I'd saved a voicemail from Grandma from 2 weeks before she went into hospice, her voice stronger then, telling me about plans she'd made, something about a surprise she had arranged for Ben and me. I'd meant to listen to it again more carefully, to hear exactly what she'd said. But when I went to play it, the message was gone. Not accidentally deleted, the entire voicemail thread with Grandma's number had been wiped from my phone. I knew immediately what had happened. Linda had been at my apartment the day before, ostensibly dropping off some of Ben's things he'd left at her house. She must have taken my phone while I was in the bathroom, must have deliberately erased those messages. The violation was breathtaking. Later that evening, Ben was doing homework at the kitchen table when he suddenly looked up. "Mom, remember when we visited Grandma at her house before she got really sick? She kept talking about a surprise for you. She said it was going to make everything okay." I put down the dish I was washing and knelt beside my son. "Do you remember what she said exactly?" Ben scrunched up his face, thinking hard. "She said something like, 'Your mama's going to be taken care of, no matter what.' And she was smiling, that smile she does when she's planning something good." Tears stung my eyes. Grandma had known, had seen this coming somehow, and had made plans. But what plans? And how could I find them before Linda destroyed whatever protections Grandma had tried to put in place? That night, I lay awake replaying every conversation, every hint, every strange moment from the past few months. The nurse's mention of the video camera. Grandma's cryptic comments about plans. Mr. Crawford's refusal to take my calls. They were all connected somehow, pieces of a puzzle Grandma had left behind. But would I figure it out in time? I was at work the following afternoon when my phone rang with a call from Magnolia Gardens. My heart seized. That kind of call during school hours never brought good news. "Emma, you should come," Karen said gently. "Your grandmother's taken a turn. She's asking for you." I grabbed my things and ran, leaving my confused students with a teacher next door, driving through Savannah's historic streets faster than I should have, my heart hammering with fear and dread. When I arrived, I found Linda already there, sitting beside Grandma's bed, clutching a folder to her chest with white-knuckled hands. Her face was carefully composed, the picture of a devoted daughter, but her eyes were calculating, watchful. Grandma looked worse than I'd ever seen her, her skin gray, her breathing labored. But when she saw me, she reached out with a trembling hand. "Emma, baby." I rushed to her other side, taking her hand while Linda watched with cold eyes. Grandma's fingers gripped mine with surprising strength, and she pulled me closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Promise me. Don't let her take what's yours. The truth. It's all there. Just wait for the right time." Her eyes moved to Linda with an expression I'd never seen before, not love or even disappointment, but something like pity mixed with steel. "I know what you did, Linda. I know everything." Linda's face went pale, but she forced a smile. "Mother, you're confused. The medication, I'm not confused." Grandma's voice gained strength for just a moment. "You thought I was too old and sick to notice. But I saw. I knew. And I made sure justice." Her words trailed off as exhaustion overtook her. It was the last clear sentence she would ever speak to me. Over the next few hours, Grandma drifted in and out of consciousness, her moments of clarity growing shorter and more confused. Linda stayed the entire time, never leaving, her presence oppressive and watchful. I realized she was making sure Grandma couldn't say anything else damaging, couldn't pass along any more information. The folder she'd been clutching had disappeared into her designer handbag. Whatever was in it, Linda was desperate to keep it hidden. Grandma June passed away quietly at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday. I wasn't there. I'd gone home to rest after Karen promised to call if anything changed. Linda had been there though. Linda had made sure she was the only one present for our grandmother's final moments. The funeral arrangements appeared almost instantly, as if Linda had been planning them for weeks. The service was tasteful and controlled, held at Savannah's oldest church, attended by what felt like half the city's social elite. My mother played her part perfectly, the grieving daughter, accepting condolences with grace, her black designer dress impeccable, her makeup allowing just enough evidence of tears to appear authentic. I sat in the back with Ben, feeling invisible, my genuine grief smothered by the spectacle of Linda's performance. People who'd barely known Grandma gave lengthy speeches about her kindness and generosity, while I, who'd spent nearly every weekend with her for 32 years, wasn't asked to speak at all. After the service, as people mingled in the church lobby offering condolences and sharing stories, I noticed a figure standing apart from the crowd. Mr. Crawford, Grandma's attorney, tall and silver-haired, dressed in an expensive suit, watching the proceedings with an unreadable expression. He hadn't been at the service itself, I realized. He'd arrived after, deliberately avoiding the formal proceedings. And he was carrying a sealed envelope. Our eyes met across the room, and something passed between us, recognition, perhaps, or shared purpose. He started walking toward me, the envelope held almost protectively against his chest. That's when Linda noticed. She moved faster than I'd ever seen her move, intercepting Crawford before he reached me, her hand shooting out to snatch the envelope from his grasp. "That's for the executor," she said, her voice sharp despite the public setting. "I'll take care of it." "Actually," I said, stepping forward, "I'd like to see what it is." The envelope had my name on it, written in Grandma's distinctive handwriting. Linda's face hardened. "This is family business, Emma. Legal matters that don't concern you. If it has my name on it, it concerns me." A small crowd was beginning to notice our confrontation, their conversations trailing off as they watched the family drama unfold. Mr. Crawford stepped between us, his voice carrying quiet authority. "Mrs. Blake, this envelope is specifically addressed to your daughter and marked to be opened after the funeral. According to your mother's explicit instructions, Emma has the right to receive it." Linda's eyes flashed with fury, but she was trapped by propriety and the watching crowd. Slowly, reluctantly, she released the envelope. Mr. Crawford handed it to me, and I felt the weight of whatever truth it contained. My hands shook as I carefully opened the envelope in a quiet corner of the church lobby, Ben standing close beside me, Linda watching from across the room like a hawk tracking prey. Inside was a single piece of paper, Grandma's handwriting shaky but clear. "My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But I'm not truly gone. My love remains in the truth I've left behind. Don't grieve for me, baby. Instead, be strong. What your mother has done is not your fault, and it's not your burden to carry. I've made provisions, plans you'll understand when the time is right. My lawyer will know when to play the truth. Until then, be patient. Justice is coming. All my love, Grandma June." Below the letter, taped to the page, was a small silver key. No label, no explanation, just a key that looked like it might fit a safe deposit box or a locked drawer. I turned it over in my fingers, feeling its weight, wondering what it opened. Linda materialized at my elbow, trying to read over my shoulder. "What does it say? What did she leave you?" I folded the letter quickly, tucking it and the key into my purse. "That's between Grandma and me. Emma, don't be childish. If there are legal documents or financial information, I need to see them. I'm the executor of the estate." "Then you'll see them when it's legally appropriate," Mr. Crawford interjected smoothly, appearing beside us. "Mrs. Blake, there are proper procedures for these matters. Your mother's final wishes will be executed according to her instructions and Georgia probate law." Linda's mouth opened to argue, but Crawford's expression stopped her. He handed her a business card. "The formal will reading is scheduled for next week. All relevant parties will be notified of the date and time. Until then, I suggest we all respect the grieving process." As he walked away, I noticed Linda's hands were shaking, her carefully maintained composure cracking at the edges. Whatever she'd thought she'd gotten away with, something had her worried. And that gave me my first real surge of hope since this nightmare began. The will reading was scheduled for the following Thursday at 2 p.m. The days between the funeral and the appointment crawled by with agonizing slowness. I tried to reach Mr. Crawford multiple times, wanting to understand what Grandma had planned, but his secretary politely told me he couldn't discuss the estate until the formal reading. Linda, meanwhile, became increasingly aggressive in her attempts to find out what the key opened. She called repeatedly, showed up at my apartment unannounced, even tried to get Ben to tell her what secret Grandma had left me. There's no secret, I told her during one particularly uncomfortable visit. Just a letter saying she loved me. And a key, Linda pressed. What does the key open, Emma? I don't know yet. That was the truth. I tried it in every lock I could think of, from Grandma's jewelry box to the old filing cabinet in her cottage, but nothing worked. The key remained a mystery, frustrating and tantalizing. Finally, Thursday arrived. I dressed carefully in a simple black dress, dropped Ben at my ex-husband's house, and drove to Crawford's law office in downtown Savannah. The building was one of those historic structures that screamed old money and established power, all marble floors and dark wood paneling. Linda was already there when I arrived, sitting in the conference room looking perfectly composed in pearls and a designer suit. Aunt Ruth sat beside her, looking small and frightened. A few distant cousins I barely knew occupied other chairs around the polished table. Mr. Crawford entered carrying a leather folder, his expression professionally neutral. Thank you all for coming. We're here for the reading of June Elizabeth Blake's last will and testament. He opened the folder, and I noticed Linda lean forward slightly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The document is straightforward, Crawford began. Mrs. Blake's estate, including all property, assets and personal belongings, is to be liquidated, with proceeds distributed as follows. He continued reading, listing charitable donations and small bequests to various people. Then, the bulk of the estate, including proceeds from the sale of the family home and all remaining financial assets, shall be distributed to my daughter, Linda Marie Blake. Linda couldn't quite hide her satisfied smile. My chest tightened with disappointment and betrayal, even though I'd expected it. Grandma had always been generous, but Linda was her daughter. Of course she'd leave everything to her. But then Crawford paused, looking up from the document. However, there is one additional provision. The room went completely silent. Linda's smile froze on her face as Mr. Crawford continued, his voice carefully neutral. Mrs. Blake includes the following stipulation. However, an additional statement is to be presented before full execution of this will. A video recording was made on March 15th of this year, containing information relevant to the disposition of my estate. This recording must be viewed by all named beneficiaries and relevant parties before any assets are distributed. Linda's face went from satisfied to panicked in the span of a heartbeat. That's irregular, she said quickly. Surely we can just proceed with the written will as stated. These kinds of additions are often confused elderly ramblings that Mrs. Blake was examined by 2 physicians on March 14th, Crawford interrupted smoothly. Both confirmed she was of sound mind and body at the time of the recording. The video statement is legally binding and must be viewed according to her explicit instructions. When? I asked, my voice shaking slightly. I could feel it now, the truth Grandma had mentioned, the justice she'd promised. It was all on that recording. We'll reconvene 1 week from today, same time, to view the recording together. Crawford's eyes moved to Linda. Mrs. Blake requested that all beneficiaries be present, including Emma Blake, Ruth Blake, and several charities named in the will. Linda stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. This is absurd. My mother was manipulated, clearly influenced by someone to make these unnecessary complications. Her eyes cut to me accusingly. I want an investigation into whether this recording was obtained under duress or undue influence. You're welcome to contest the will, Crawford said calmly. Though I should mention that the recording was witnessed by myself, a notary public, and Nurse Karen Thompson from Magnolia Gardens Hospice. All 3 of us can attest to your mother's clarity and willingness to make the statement. Linda's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. For the first time in my entire life, I watched my mother rendered speechless. As we filed out of the conference room, I felt Linda's hand grip my arm tightly, pulling me aside into an empty hallway. What did you do? She hissed. How did you manipulate her into making that recording? I pulled my arm free. I didn't do anything, Mom. Whatever's on that video, Grandma did it herself. She was dying. She was confused and medicated and she was lucid when it mattered, I said quietly. And apparently, she knew exactly what you'd done. Linda's mask cracked completely then, pure fury and desperation flooding her features. You have no idea what you're messing with, Emma. No idea. But I was starting to understand. and I couldn't wait for next Thursday to arrive. The week between will readings was psychological warfare. Linda tried everything in her arsenal of manipulation tactics, cycling through them like a greatest hits collection of emotional abuse. She started with tears and guilt, showing up at my apartment with red-rimmed eyes, claiming I was destroying our family, tearing apart the last threads that held us together. Your grandmother would be heartbroken to see us fighting like this, she sobbed dramatically. She loved family unity above everything. She loved honesty more, I replied, refusing to engage with the performance. When guilt didn't work, Linda switched to gaslighting, suggesting I was remembering things wrong, that Grandma had been confused in her final months, that the house sale had been discussed and approved by everyone. You were there when we talked about it, she insisted. Don't you remember? Grandma said she understood it was necessary. That never happened, Mom. Stop lying. Next came veiled threats about my teaching position, hints that she had friends on the school board who could make things difficult for me. Then bribes, offers of money if I'd just let this go and move on. When nothing worked, she tried to weaponize Ben, suggesting that dragging family drama into public view would traumatize him, that I was being selfish prioritizing revenge over my son's well-being. You'll tear this family apart if you keep digging, she said during one particularly nasty phone call. My response was quiet but firm. You already did that yourself, Mom. I'm just refusing to help you cover it up. The constant barrage was exhausting. I found myself second-guessing everything, wondering if I was being vindictive, if I should just let it go and try to maintain some kind of relationship with my mother. But then Ben would say something innocent that reminded me what was at stake. Mom, when can we visit Grandma's house again? He asked one evening. I miss the tire swing and the magnolia tree we planted. Soon, baby, I promised, though I wasn't sure if it was a promise I could keep. The house had already sold, hadn't it? Or had it? Nothing about this situation was clear anymore. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. While Linda escalated her manipulation attempts, I took a different approach. I tracked down the man who'd bought Grandma's house, a real estate developer named Marcus Chun. I found him at a construction site in Midtown and introduced myself as June Blake's granddaughter. His expression immediately became uncomfortable. Look, Ms. Blake, I'm sorry for your loss. Your grandmother seemed like a lovely woman from everything I've heard. Did you meet her? Before you bought the house? His discomfort deepened. No, actually. Your mother handled everything. She explained that Mrs. Blake was in hospice care, too far gone to handle the paperwork herself, but that she had power of attorney and full authority to execute the sale. My stomach churned. Did she show you proof of that power of attorney? Marcus shifted his weight, clearly wishing he was anywhere but here. She provided documents, yes. Everything looked legitimate. The title company verified everything before closing. Mr. Chun, did my mother tell you my grandmother wanted to sell the house? Or did she say Grandma was incapacitated and she was making the decision for her? He was quiet for a long moment. She said your grandmother was no longer capable of making decisions, that the family had decided together it was best to sell before medical bills consumed everything. My grandmother's care was fully covered by insurance. There were no medical bills. The color drained from Marcus's face. Are you telling me the sale was fraudulent? I'm telling you my mother forged my grandmother's consent to sell property that wasn't legally hers to sell. I'm not sure exactly how yet, but I will be by next week. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely distressed. Ms. Blake, if that's true, I'm an innocent buyer. I did my due diligence. The title company, I'm not blaming you, I said quickly. But I needed to understand how this happened. My mother doesn't just manipulate family, she manipulates everyone. As I drove away, I felt the pieces clicking into place. Linda had used her power of attorney to sell property without Grandma's knowledge or consent, had forged signatures or manipulated documents, had lied to everyone to accomplish her theft. And Grandma had somehow known and documented it all. Mr. Crawford finally agreed to meet with me privately 3 days before the second will reading. His office was everything you'd expect from a man who'd practiced law for 40 years, leather-bound books, antique furniture, and an air of old-world professionalism. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, he began, gesturing for me to sit. Sharp as a tack right up until the end, despite what your mother wants people to believe. You've been avoiding me for weeks, I said. Why? Crawford smiled slightly. Because June instructed me to. She said you'd figure things out on your own if given time, and that my job was to protect her final wishes until the proper moment. She was quite specific about timing. He unlocked a desk drawer, the same drawer I'd noticed during our previous meetings, and pulled out a small metal box. Do you have the key she left you? My hands shook as I retrieved it from my purse. It slid into the lock perfectly, and the box opened to reveal a flash drive. What's on it? The truth, Crawford said simply. Your grandmother suspected what Linda was planning months before she got sick. When her cancer diagnosis came, she knew she was running out of time. So she documented everything, Linda's manipulation, the forged signatures, the theft of property, all of it. Can I watch it now? He shook his head. June was adamant that it be viewed for the first time in front of everyone named in the will. She wanted no chance for Linda to claim the video was edited or taken out of context. When we watch it next Thursday, there will be witnesses who can never be impeached. I held the flash drive carefully, feeling the weight of Grandma's final gift, truth preserved in digital form, waiting to expose everything Linda had done. Your grandmother loved you very much, Crawford said quietly. She hated that she had to leave this burden to you, but she knew you were strong enough to handle it. She said you were the only one brave enough to stand up to Linda. Tears stung my eyes. I just want to make things right. You will, he assured me. On Thursday, justice will be served exactly as June planned it. That night, I held the flash drive and whispered, "Thank you, Grandma. I won't let you down." The night before the final will reading, Linda escalated to a level I'd never experienced before. She showed up at my school at 3 o'clock, just as classes were ending, and created a scene that would be talked about for weeks. I was in my classroom erasing the board when the door slammed open. Linda stormed in, her face flushed with rage, her usually perfect composure completely shattered. You poisoned her against me, she shouted, not caring that students were still in the hallway, that other teachers could hear. You manipulated a dying woman to change her will. My principal, Dr. Matthews, appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Blake, you need to calm down or I'll have to call security. She's destroying my reputation. Spreading lies about me to turn everyone against me. She's trying to steal my inheritance. Linda's voice was shrill, desperate. I stood calmly behind my desk, refusing to engage with her hysteria. I haven't spread any lies, Mom. Whatever consequences you're facing, you brought on yourself. I'm your mother. I gave birth to you, raised you, sacrificed for you. And this is how you repay me? By turning my own mother against me. Grandma made her own decisions, I said quietly. Based on your own actions. No one turned her against you, you did that yourself. Dr. Matthews stepped between us, his voice firm. Mrs. Blake, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. If you don't go voluntarily, I'll call the police. Linda looked at me with such hatred that I actually stepped back. This isn't over, Emma. When the will reading happens tomorrow, when everyone sees what a manipulative little snake you've been, you'll regret ever crossing me. She stormed out, leaving behind shocked silence and the first real public crack in her perfect facade. Dr. Matthews looked at me with concern. Are you okay? Do you need to take tomorrow off? No, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. Tomorrow, I need to be exactly where I'm supposed to be. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying Linda's rage, her desperation, the way her mask had completely shattered. She knew she was cornered, knew that tomorrow would bring exposure she couldn't manipulate or control. And a cornered animal was always most dangerous right before the end. The audience watching this unfold was getting their first taste of real poetic karma. Linda's unraveling had begun, and tomorrow it would be complete. Thursday morning dawned cloudy and humid, typical Savannah weather that matched my nervous energy. I dropped Ben at school, hugged him maybe a little too tight, and drove to Crawford's office with my hands clenched on the steering wheel. This was it. Whatever Grandma had recorded, whatever truth she'd preserved, would finally be revealed. Linda arrived last, her appearance perfect as always, designer suit, flawless makeup, every hair in place. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the tightness around her eyes. She'd spent the morning rebuilding her armor, preparing for battle. Mr. Crawford had set up a large screen in the conference room. Aunt Ruth sat quietly in the corner, looking like she wanted to disappear. Several charity representatives were present, along with a court reporter to make the proceedings official. Before we begin, Crawford announced, I want to clarify that this recording was made voluntarily by June Elizabeth Blake on March 15th of this year. She was examined by 2 independent physicians who certified her sound mind and capacity. The recording was witnessed by myself, a notary public, and a registered nurse. No one coerced or influenced Mrs. Blake in any way. Linda's lawyer, a stern woman named Patricia Moore she'd hired just days ago, stood. My client reserves the right to contest any provisions made in this recording if they appear to be the result of undue influence or diminished capacity. Noted, Crawford said dryly. Now, if everyone's ready? He dimmed the lights and started the video. The screen flickered to life, and there was Grandma June, sitting in a chair in what looked like a hospital conference room. She appeared frail but alert, her blue eyes sharp and focused. She was wearing her favorite lavender cardigan, and the sight of her alive and speaking made tears spring instantly to my eyes. Hello, Grandma began, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in her final weeks. If you're watching this, I'm gone. And Linda. Her eyes looked directly into the camera. I know what you did. The room went absolutely still. Even the sound of breathing seemed to stop as Grandma continued speaking, her words measured and deliberate. I know you think I was too old and sick to notice what was happening. But I wasn't. I saw the papers you tried to hide, the documents you thought I'd signed without reading. I heard your phone conversations when you thought I was sleeping. I knew about your plan to sell my house before I was even dead. Beside me, I felt Linda stiffen. On screen, Grandma shifted slightly, her jaw setting with determination. On February 10th, I discovered that you'd obtained power of attorney over my estate without my knowledge. You forged my signature on documents giving you control of my assets. On February 24th, you put my house on the market without my consent or knowledge. By March 1st, you'd accepted an offer and were proceeding toward closing. Gasps filled the room. Aunt Ruth's hand flew to her mouth. I confronted you on March 3rd, Grandma continued, her voice hardening. Do you remember, Linda? I asked you directly if you were selling my house. You looked me in the eye and told me I was confused, that the medication was making me paranoid. You convinced the hospice staff to increase my pain medication, hoping it would make me too foggy to fight back. My mother's face had gone completely white. Her lawyer leaned over to whisper something, but Linda seemed unable to respond. But I fought back anyway, Grandma said, and I swear I saw a hint of her old mischievous smile. I called John Crawford. I had myself examined by doctors who certified I was of sound mind. And I recorded everything, every conversation, every document, every lie you told. This house was meant for Emma and Ben. You knew that. I told you 100 times. But you didn't care about my wishes or their future. You only cared about money. The recording paused as Grandma took a sip of water, then continued. I'm revoking the power of attorney you obtained fraudulently. I'm annulling the sale of my property, which was executed without my consent. And I'm changing my will to ensure that Emma receives what was always meant to be hers. She looked directly into the camera, and I felt like she was speaking directly to me. Emma, baby, I'm sorry to leave you with this mess. But I know you're strong enough to handle it. Don't let her bully you. Don't let her make you feel guilty for standing up for what's right. Then she looked back toward where Linda would be sitting. As for you, Linda, I hope someday you'll understand that love isn't about control or possession. It's about trust and honesty. You lost both from me years ago. The video wasn't over. Mr. Crawford appeared on screen beside Grandma, holding up documents. For the record, he said in his professional attorney voice, I'm presenting Mrs. Blake with the following documents which she is signing of her own free will. First, a revocation of power of attorney previously granted to Linda Marie Blake. Second, a cease and desist order regarding the sale of property located at 427 Magnolia Drive. Third, an amended last will and testament. The camera zoomed in slightly as Grandma signed each document with a shaking but determined hand. 2 witnesses, a notary and Nurse Karen, stepped into frame and added their signatures. These documents were executed on March 15th, Crawford's voice continued, and filed with the appropriate authorities on March 16th. The sale of Mrs. Blake's property was halted 3 days before closing. The buyer was notified that the seller lacked proper authority, and the transaction was voided. I looked at Linda, whose face had gone from white to red. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair so tightly her knuckles were bone white. The video returned to Grandma, who now looked tired but peaceful. I don't hate you, Linda. You're my daughter, and I'll always love you. But I won't let you destroy Emma's future to feed your greed. I'm leaving the house and the bulk of my estate to Emma Blake, to be held in trust for her and my great-grandson Ben. You'll receive the items I've specifically bequeathed to you in the will, family heirlooms, some jewelry, enough to live comfortably. But the house, the land, the money you were counting on, those go to the family member who loved me without condition. She paused, taking a shaky breath. Emma, there's one more thing. In the attic of the house, behind the insulation in the northwest corner, there's a box. Inside, you'll find letters I wrote to you over the years, letters I never sent because Linda would have intercepted them. Read them. They'll explain so much about our family that you deserve to know. Grandma reached toward the camera, as if she could touch whoever was watching. Ruth, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better from Linda's manipulation. The cottage is yours for as long as you want it. Emma will honor that agreement. And to everyone watching, thank you for witnessing the truth. Sometimes the greatest gift we can leave isn't money or property, but honesty. The video ended with Grandma's face frozen on screen, her expression serene and determined. Then the screen went black, and Crawford turned on the lights. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of what we just witnessed hung heavy in the air like humidity before a storm. Then Linda exploded. She lunged up from her chair so violently it crashed backward onto the floor. This is fraud. She was manipulated. That recording is inadmissible. Her voice was shrill, desperate, all pretense of composure completely shattered. Patricia Moore, her lawyer, stood more calmly but firmly. Mr. Crawford, my client intends to contest this video and the amended will. Mrs. Blake was clearly under duress when she made these statements, likely influenced by whom? Crawford interrupted smoothly. The video clearly shows Mrs. Blake alone with me and two neutral witnesses. There's no one else in the room. The doctor's reports show she was of sound mind. The documents were properly executed and filed. On what grounds would you contest? She was dying. She was on pain medication. She was lucid, determined, and fully aware of her actions, Crawford finished. I have sworn testimony from 3 medical professionals who examined her that day. Would you like me to call them as witnesses? Linda's lawyer sat down slowly, recognizing a losing battle. But Linda wasn't done. She turned on me, her face contorted with rage and something that might have been genuine pain beneath the fury. This is all your fault. You poisoned her against me. You were always trying to steal her affection, always playing the perfect granddaughter while I did the hard work of actually caring for her. I never had to steal anything, I said quietly. Grandma loved me because I loved her, not because I wanted something from her. You're the one who saw her as a bank account instead of a person. How dare you, Mrs. Blake, Crawford interrupted firmly. You have 2 choices. You can accept the amended will as legally executed, receive the items your mother specifically left you, and move forward. Or you can contest, which will tie up the estate in probate for years, cost tens of thousands in legal fees, and ultimately fail because the video and documentation are ironclad. Your choice. Linda stood there trembling, her perfect facade completely destroyed, her manipulation tactics useless against documented proof. Finally, she grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. This isn't over, she hissed at me. You haven't heard the last of this. But we all knew it was over. Her reign of control and manipulation had ended the moment Grandma's video played. Mr. Crawford made the announcement official. Per the amended will, executed legally and properly witnessed, I hereby declare that the primary estate of June Elizabeth Blake, including the property at 427 Magnolia Drive and associated assets, is bequeathed to Emma Blake, with provisions for a trust fund for Benjamin Blake. Ruth Blake is granted lifetime tenancy of the cottage at no cost. Linda Blake receives the items specifically listed in Section 7 of the original will. He handed me a thick envelope. This contains the deed to the property, keys, and documentation you'll need. The house was never actually sold. We stopped the transaction before it closed. It's been sitting empty for 3 months, waiting for you. My hands shook as I took the envelope. The house. Grandma's beautiful house with the wraparound porch and the magnolia trees and 50 years of memories. It was mine. It was Ben's. We had a home. Aunt Ruth approached me tentatively, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Emma. Thank you for fighting when I was too scared to. The cottage is yours, Ruth. Forever, just like Grandma wanted. She hugged me, and I felt something in our family beginning to heal, the parts Linda hadn't permanently poisoned anyway. Over the next few days, the fallout spread through Savannah's social circles like wildfire. The recording had been witnessed by several charity representatives who talked, and the story of Linda Blake's attempted theft from her dying mother became the scandal of the season. The country club where Linda had been a member for 20 years asked for her resignation. Her church group, where she'd served as treasurer, conducted an audit and quietly removed her from all positions. The charity boards she'd sat on found reasons to replace her. Her carefully cultivated social standing, built over decades of manipulation and image management, crumbled in days. People who'd considered her a pillar of the community now crossed the street to avoid her. I didn't gloat or celebrate her downfall. I didn't spread the story or seek revenge. I simply stayed silent and let the truth do its work, which turned out to be the most devastating response possible. Linda had built her entire identity on reputation and social standing. Watching it all dissolve was punishment enough. 2 weeks after the will reading, I visited the house on Magnolia Drive for the first time as its owner. I'd been avoiding it, not quite ready to face the memories or the reality of what Grandma had left me. But finally, on a sunny Saturday morning, I took Ben's hand and walked up the front steps. The house looked tired and neglected from 3 months of sitting empty, but structurally sound. The magnolia trees were blooming, filling the air with their sweet, heavy scent. The porch swing where Grandma used to read to me hung motionless in the breeze. Ben ran ahead, exploring rooms he remembered from visits, exclaiming over the window seat in the library and the built-in shelves in what used to be Grandma's sewing room. I walked slowly through each space, running my fingers over familiar surfaces, feeling Grandma's presence in every corner. In the kitchen, I found a note tucked into the cookie jar, Grandma's handwriting, dated just days before she went into hospice. Emma, if you're reading this, you found your way home. I knew you would. Make new memories here, happy ones. Fill this house with laughter and love the way your grandfather and I did. And don't let your mother's bitterness poison what could be beautiful. You're stronger than her darkness. Love always, Grandma. I cried standing in that kitchen, tears of grief and gratitude mixing together. Then I remembered, the letters in the attic. I climbed the narrow stairs to the dusty space under the eaves, finding my way to the northwest corner. Behind the insulation, exactly where Grandma said, I found a metal box. Inside were dozens of letters, some dating back to when I was a teenager, written in Grandma's distinctive hand. I sat on the attic floor and began reading. Each letter was a piece of truth Linda had kept from me. Dear Emma, I wanted to tell you today that your mother borrowed $10,000 from me last month and hasn't paid it back. She said it was for your college fund, but I checked with the school, they never received it. Dear Emma, your mother told me you didn't want to visit this summer. But you called me yourself last week saying you'd asked permission and she said no. Why does she keep us apart? Letter after letter documented Linda's manipulation, her lies, her systematic attempts to control and isolate both Grandma and me. Each one ended with variations of the same message, I love you. You are worthy. Don't let her make you forget that. Spring turned to summer, and Ben and I slowly brought the house back to life. We repainted rooms in cheerful colors, hung new curtains, planted vegetables in the garden Grandma had once tended. Neighbors stopped by to introduce themselves and share memories of June Blake, each story adding another layer to my understanding of the woman who'd saved us. One afternoon, while Ben was watering the garden, I was organizing Grandma's old photo albums when I found a small envelope tucked between the pages, labeled simply for my girls. Inside was a letter I hadn't found in the attic box. Emma and Ruth, if you're reading this together, it means I succeeded in bringing you back together. Linda spent years driving wedges between family members, keeping us isolated so she could control us individually. She's always been that way. Even as a child, she was jealous of her siblings' relationships with me. I should have stopped it sooner. I should have been stronger. But I was afraid of losing her completely, so I enabled her manipulation. That was my mistake, and I'm sorry for it. When I'm gone, please don't hate her. She's been miserable her whole life, eaten up with jealousy and insecurity. Hating her would only make you become what she is. Instead, be happy. Love each other. Create the family she tried to destroy. That's the real victory, not punishing her, but thriving despite her. With all my love, Grandma June. I sat with that letter for a long time, tears streaming down my face. Grandma was right. Hating Linda would only poison my own life the way greed and jealousy had poisoned hers. The real triumph wasn't watching my mother's downfall, it was building something beautiful from what she tried to destroy. That evening, I called Aunt Ruth and read her the letter. She cried, and we talked for hours about family and forgiveness and how to move forward. Your grandmother was a wise woman, Ruth said finally. She knew the best revenge was living well. It's not revenge, I corrected gently. It's justice. There's a difference. And there was. Justice meant truth being revealed and consequences naturally following. Justice meant protection for future victims and restoration for past ones. Justice meant Grandma's wishes being honored and her love being remembered correctly. Revenge would have been vindictive and cruel. Justice was simply allowing the truth to exist. 3 months after taking ownership of the house, I received an unexpected visitor. I was in the garden with Ben when a car pulled up, not Linda's luxury sedan, but a modest Honda I didn't recognize. Linda emerged, and I barely recognized her. She'd lost weight, her expensive clothes replaced by department store basics. Her hair, always professionally styled, was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked older, tired, diminished. "Emma," she said, her voice lacking its usual commanding tone. "Can we talk?" I sent Ben inside and met my mother at the garden gate. We stood there awkwardly, years of hurt and betrayal between us like a wall. "I came to tell you that I'm moving away," Linda said finally. "South Carolina, maybe Florida. Somewhere I can start over." "Okay." "Is that all you have to say?" "Okay." Her voice held a flicker of the old anger. "What do you want me to say, Mom? I hope you find peace? I hope you learn something from this? I do hope those things, but I don't think you're capable of hearing them." She flinched. "You destroyed me, Emma. You took everything I had, my reputation, my social standing, my friends. You made me a pariah in my own city." "I didn't do any of that," I said quietly. "You did it to yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your actions. There's a difference. I'm your mother. You were Grandma's daughter too. But that didn't stop you from stealing from her, lying to her, manipulating her while she was dying. Being someone's family doesn't give you the right to hurt them." Linda's eyes filled with tears, real ones, I thought, maybe the first genuine tears I'd ever seen from her. "I never meant for it to go this far. I was afraid of being poor, of losing everything. Your father left me nothing when he died. Mother had money and security, and I thought I deserved it." "You did deserve it," I said. "She would have provided for you. But you got greedy, and you got caught." We stood in silence for a moment. Then Linda turned to leave, paused, turned back. "Was it worth it? Getting the house, watching me fall?" "It was never about you falling, Mom. It was about making sure Grandma's wishes were honored and Ben had security. If you'd just been patient, if you'd just been honest, you'd have received plenty. But you couldn't wait. You couldn't trust." Linda nodded slowly, climbed into her car, and drove away. I never saw her again. Fall arrived with cooler weather and changing leaves, painting Savannah in shades of gold and crimson. Ben started 3rd grade at a school near our new home, making friends with neighborhood kids, thriving in ways he never had in our cramped apartment. On a Saturday morning in October, 6 months after Grandma's death, I stood on the porch watching Ben play on the tire swing we'd rehung from the old oak tree. The house had transformed over the summer, fresh paint, repaired screens, flower boxes blooming with autumn mums. It looked loved again, lived in, full of the warmth Grandma had always created. Aunt Ruth came over for coffee, bringing homemade blueberry muffins, and we sat on the porch swing together. "June would have loved seeing this," Ruth said, watching Ben laugh as he swung higher. "The house alive again, you and Ben happy here." "I wish she could see it," I admitted. "I wish I could thank her properly for fighting for us even when she was dying." "She knows," Ruth said with certainty. "Wherever she is, she knows." Neighbors stopped by throughout the morning, Mrs. Chun from next door with fresh tomatoes from her garden, the Johnsons from across the street asking if Ben wanted to join their son's soccer team. These were the same people who'd loved and respected Grandma June, and now they were welcoming us into their community. Around noon, I noticed a delivery truck pull up. The driver brought a large package to the porch, addressed to me. Inside, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, was a painting, the view from Grandma's porch, the magnolia trees in bloom, painted in soft watercolors. A note attached read, "Mrs. Blake commissioned this before she passed. She wanted you to have a piece of the view she loved most. She said you'd understand someday that home isn't about walls and roofs, it's about the love that fills the spaces in between." Savannah Arts Studio. I hung the painting in the living room where the afternoon light hit it perfectly, and every time I looked at it, I remembered Grandma's words, "Make new memories here, happy ones." That's exactly what we were doing. The house wasn't just shelter or property or inheritance. It was a foundation for building the life Grandma had wanted for us, one filled with honesty, love, and the kind of quiet joy that doesn't need validation from anyone else. A year after Grandma's death, on the anniversary of her passing, I received a single text from a number I didn't recognize. The message contained only a photo, Grandma's roses, which I'd carefully tended and which were now blooming in spectacular profusion around the porch. The caption read simply, "She would have been proud." I knew immediately it was from Linda, wherever she'd gone, whatever life she'd built away from Savannah. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. It existed as a small, complicated moment of connection between mother and daughter, neither forgiveness nor condemnation, just acknowledgement. That afternoon, Ben and I hosted a small gathering to remember Grandma. Aunt Ruth came, and several of Grandma's old friends, and the neighbors who'd known her for decades. We shared stories and laughter, ate her favorite foods, and planted a dogwood tree in her memory in the backyard. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I found myself standing alone on the porch, looking out over the property Grandma had fought so hard to preserve for us. I thought about her final video, her careful planning, her determination to ensure justice was served even after she was gone. Some people might call what happened to Linda revenge, but that wasn't what Grandma had wanted. She'd simply wanted truth. Truth about Linda's manipulation, truth about the house sale, truth about family dynamics that had been poisoned by greed and control. The consequence of that truth was Linda's downfall, but that was justice, not vengeance. There's a difference, and it matters. Grandma didn't need revenge because revenge is about hurting someone who hurt you. Justice is about restoring balance, protecting the innocent, and ensuring that love and honesty triumph over manipulation and greed. I pulled out my phone and typed a text to the number Linda had messaged from, "Thank you for remembering her. The roses are beautiful. I hope you found peace." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. Linda had never apologized or acknowledged the full weight of what she'd done. But it was grace, which is different. It was choosing not to carry the weight of her crimes in my heart anymore. Ben called from inside, asking for help with homework, and I smiled. This was what Grandma had given us, not just a house but freedom. Freedom from financial insecurity, from toxic manipulation, from the burden of carrying someone else's bitterness. She'd left justice blooming exactly where it belonged, in the truth that set us free, in the home that sheltered us, in the love that would outlast all the lies. As I walked inside to help my son, I whispered to the evening air, "Thank you, Grandma. We're home. Finally, truly home." And somewhere in whatever place spirits go when they've completed their earthly work, I believe June Blake smiled, satisfied that her final gift, not money or property, but truth and justice, had taken root and flourished exactly as she'd planned. The ending wasn't about Linda's punishment. It was about our liberation. It was about a grandmother's love being stronger than her daughter's greed. It was about justice served not through vengeance but through carefully preserved truth. And it was about the quiet, profound triumph of building something beautiful from the wreckage someone else created. That's the legacy Grandma June left us. Not just a house on Magnolia Drive, but the understanding that sometimes the greatest gift we can give is the courage to tell the truth, even when, especially when, it costs us everything to do so. The truth set us free. And freedom, it turned out, looked like home.